All right, so today we are diving into a book that promises to totally shake up how you think about building a business.
Okay.
Ready, Fire, Aim. Have you heard of this one?
I have actually, yeah. It's definitely an attention-grabbing title, right?
It is, and you know me, I'm always a little skeptical of anything that promises overnight success or,
Right.
going from 0 to 100 million in no time flat. But
Yeah.
I gotta say, there's actually some really interesting stuff in here, and I think it's super relevant to what a lot of us are trying to do, like building something from the ground up.
Yeah, and I think what's so interesting about this book is it really flips the script on how we traditionally approach starting a business.
Right.
We're always told plan meticulously, analyze everything, get it perfect, and launch. But Masterson's like, nope, forget that ready, fire, aim.
Yeah. It's so true. It's like he's saying action is king. And in today's world, things move so fast that if you wait until everything's perfect, you're already behind.
100%.
Yeah.
While your competition is still fiddling with their website or tweaking their business plan, you're out there gaining real-world experience, making mistakes, and figuring out what works.
Right, and I think that's what resonated with me most about this whole ready, fire, aim thing. It's like it gives you permission to not be perfect, to embrace the messiness of starting something new.
Totally. Because let's be honest, I think a lot of us, we have this fear of putting ourselves out there before we feel totally ready.
Oh yeah, big time. Like what if it's not good enough? What if people hate it?
Exactly. But Masterson argues that by delaying that launch, by striving for this elusive perfection,
Huh.
we're actually missing out on valuable feedback and opportunities to adapt.
And he has this really cool example in the book about this guy, Alex Chu. Maybe you've heard of him.
Bigly.
So Alex created this website, $1 million homepage.com,
Yeah.
and it was like the most basic website you can imagine, just a grid of 1 million pixels.
Okay.
And his whole idea was he was going to sell each pixel for $1 to advertisers. And people thought he was nuts.
Wow.
But guess what? He ended up making $1 million in just 5 months.
No way. Seriously.
Yeah. And the website itself, it was laughably simple. But what Alex understood was that getting his product out there, even if it wasn't perfect, was more important than waiting for it to be some masterpiece.
It's such a good example of how speed and adaptability can be so much more valuable than perfectionism. Because, let's be real, perfection is subjective, and it's often a moving target.
Totally. And I think that's something we can all take to heart, no matter what we're working on.
Absolutely. So I'm curious, thinking about this ready, fire, aim idea, is there something you've been wanting to launch or test out, even if it's not perfect?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm sure there is.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I think we all have those ideas that we're kind of letting simmer on the back burner. But maybe this is the push we need to just go for it.
Right, because what's the worst that could happen? You learn from it, you adapt, and you move on.
Exactly.
So much better than just letting that fear hold you back.
100%.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of taking action, but how does this ready, fire, aim approach actually play out in the real world?
Yeah, because it can't just be about launching something haphazardly and hoping for the best, right?
Right, it's got to be more nuanced than that.
Okay, so you're picking up on something really important here. Masterson's not advocating for recklessness. He actually emphasizes the importance of planning, but he believes that the most effective planning happens after you've taken that initial leap.
Okay, that's interesting. So it's like you're gathering information and insights as you go,
Yeah.
and then using that to inform your next move.
Precisely. It's about being responsive to the market,
Yeah.
to what your customers are telling you, instead of trying to predict everything up front, which, let's be honest, is pretty much impossible.
Yeah, no crystal ball in the entrepreneurial world, unfortunately.
Sadly not. But you know what? There is something that every entrepreneur needs to master, and it's arguably even scarier than launching without a perfect plan.
Oh boy, what's that?
Selling.
Dun dun dun.
Right. And Masterson doesn't sugarcoat it. He's very upfront about the fact that every entrepreneur, at least in the early stages, has to become their company's top salesperson.
He's not wrong though, is he?
Yep. Because at the end of the day, you're the one who believes in your idea the most.
Yeah.
You're the one who's most passionate about it. So who better to get other people excited about it?
True. But what about people who are sales? That's my worst nightmare. I know a lot of creative entrepreneurs, especially, who would rather do just about anything than try to sell something.
I hear you. And Masterson does address that. He actually shares this really interesting story about how he took over this struggling newsletter business early in his career.
Yeah.
The content was actually pretty good, but their sales were abysmal.
Oh.
And instead of trying to revamp the editorial side, he decided to go all in on sales. He revamped their marketing materials, picked up the phone himself, started networking like crazy, and basically just made selling his #1 priority.
And what happened?
Well, it worked. He managed to turn the entire business around, taking it from barely scraping by to generating millions of dollars in revenue.
Wow.
And it was through this experience that he realized that selling, even though it might not come naturally to everyone, is a skill that can be learned.
That's actually really encouraging because I think a lot of times we assume that some people are just born salespeople and the rest of us are just out of luck.
Yeah, but that's not true at all. It's
Yeah.
like any other skill, the more you practice it, the better you become at it.
So it's not just about being like a smooth talker or
Yeah.
having some secret formula.
Not at all. It's about understanding your audience,
Hmm.
being able to clearly communicate the value of what you're offering, and building relationships.
And I bet those are skills that serve you well in all aspects of business, not just closing deals.
Absolutely. Because at its core, selling is really just about effective communication. And that's something we can all benefit from.
Okay, so we've talked about action, we've talked about sales, but there's another piece to this puzzle, right?
There is, and it's a big one. How do you keep that momentum going once you've launched and made those initial sales? How do you scale without burning out or losing sight of your vision?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is. And that's where we'll pick things up after a quick break. We'll dive into Masterson's insights on sustainable growth, building a killer team, and even how to transition from entrepreneur to investor.
Stay tuned. All right, so we're back and ready to dig into the next phase of Ready, Fire, Aim. So we've launched, we're selling, but now what? How do you keep that momentum going without burning yourself out?
Right, because building a business is not a sprint, it's totally a marathon.
Right, totally. And I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs hit a wall. They have that initial burst of energy, but then figuring out how to scale, how to sustain that growth, that's a whole other
It
challenge.
definitely is. And that's where Masterson introduces this concept he calls the one-step removed principle.
Okay, one step removed. Tell me more about that.
So it's based on this idea that instead of constantly chasing after the next big thing, sustainable growth often comes from looking at what you're already doing well and finding ways to expand on that, but strategically, not taking these giant leaps into completely unrelated areas.
So it's about leveraging your existing strengths and customer base rather than jumping ship to something totally new.
Exactly. It's about taking those calculated risks, those one-step removed opportunities. Like, let's say you've got this awesome online store that sells handmade jewelry.
Okay, I'm following.
A one-step removed move might be to start offering jewelry-making workshops or partnering with local boutiques to carry your pieces. You're not ditching your online store. You're building on that existing success.
Right, you're not suddenly opening a bakery.
Exactly. That would be like way more than one step removed.
For sure. It's like stick to what you know, but find creative ways to expand within that realm. I like it.
Yeah, and to help you brainstorm those one-step opportunities, Masterson talks about this tool called the Magic Product Cube.
Okay, a magic product cube. I am always here for a good visual aid. Break it down for me.
All right, so picture a cube, right? And it's got these three axes: price, product type, and USP.
And just for those of us who might need a little refresher, what does USP stand for again?
Oh, good point. Stands for Unique Selling Proposition. Basically, it's that special sauce, that thing that makes your product or service different from all the competition.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
All right, so with this Magic Product Cube, you're basically brainstorming different variations and combinations of those three elements. So, for example, maybe you play around with different price points for your product. Could you offer a premium version or a more budget-friendly option? Or you could explore different product types. Could you create a smaller travel-size version, a bundled package deal? And then think about highlighting different USPs. What makes your product stand out? Is it the quality, the sustainability, the convenience?
I see. So it's about getting creative and exploring all these different facets of your product or service.
Yes, and this cube, it's just a tool, right?
Mhm.
It's meant to get you thinking outside the box and to help you see those one-step removed possibilities that maybe weren't so obvious before.
Because sometimes all it takes is a fresh perspective, right? A new way of looking at what you're already doing. Okay, so we've got this awesome product. We've mastered the art of selling. We're strategically expanding our offerings. But there's still one crucial ingredient for long-term success in the entrepreneurial world, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, and it's a big one, building an amazing team.
Because you can't do it all yourself, right? You need that support system, those people who share your vision and who can help you take your business to the next level.
100%. And that's where we'll dive in next, exploring how to build your dream team, attract those superstar employees, and cultivate a company culture that fosters growth and innovation.
All right, so we're back, and we're talking about building a dream team, something that I know can feel like a huge hurdle, especially for entrepreneurs who are just starting out.
You're absolutely right. Finding the right people, especially those who share your vision and drive, is essential. And Masterson makes this interesting distinction between stars and superstars.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this star versus superstar thing.
Well, he describes stars as those really competent employees who consistently get the job done. Solid, dependable, but maybe not setting the world on fire. Superstars, on the other hand, are those individuals with that innate entrepreneurial spirit. They're not just looking for a job, they're looking to build something meaningful.
I love that distinction. It's that difference between someone who checks all the boxes on a resume and someone who's truly passionate and proactive.
Exactly. They're the ones who are always looking for ways to improve, to innovate, and they're not afraid to take ownership and initiative. But how do you actually find these superstars? It's not always obvious from a job interview, right?
You're preaching to the choir, so how did Masterson's former business partner, the one who had that knack for spotting talent, do it?
He had this really clever approach. Instead of just offering a standard job description, he'd entice potential superstars with the opportunity to essentially run their own show within the company. Gave them ownership and autonomy right from the get-go.
It's brilliant. You're basically tapping into that intrinsic motivation, giving them the space and freedom to really make their mark. But that also requires a certain level of trust, doesn't it? How do you structure roles and delegate effectively, especially if you're used to calling all the shots?
This is where clear communication is key. You've got to set clear expectations, define roles and responsibilities, and then most importantly, step back and trust your team to deliver.
It's that transition from doer to leader, which can be tough for some entrepreneurs.
It definitely is. It requires a conscious shift in mindset. You're no longer the one in the trenches doing everything yourself. You're setting the vision, providing guidance, and empowering your team to execute. But even with a thriving business and a stellar team, I think there comes a time when many entrepreneurs start to feel a bit.
Restless.
I've been there. It's that love-hate relationship you can sometimes have with your own business. You poured your heart and soul into it, but it can also be all-consuming.
Exactly. And that's where Masterson introduces this really intriguing idea, transitioning from the role of entrepreneur to that of investor in your own company. That's a fascinating concept. So instead of being completely entangled in the day-to-day, you're stepping back and looking at the bigger picture.
Right. You start evaluating your business through a different lens. How can you optimize its value? What's your long-term exit strategy?
I love this. It's like you're taking a page from the playbook of those savvy investors we often hear about.
Absolutely. It's about playing the long game, making strategic decisions that benefit your company's growth, and ultimately your own financial freedom. And there's this great anecdote in the book about Belinda Mulrooney. Have you heard of her?
Rings a bell, but refresh my memory.
She was this incredibly savvy businesswoman during the Alaskan gold rush. Now, here's the interesting part. She didn't strike it rich by digging for gold herself. She saw a different opportunity than the needs of the gold miners themselves. So she built hotels, restaurants, even a bank, essentially providing the infrastructure for the gold rush.
Wow. Talk about recognizing a need and filling it.
Exactly. And she ended up amassing a fortune far greater than most of those who were actually out there panning for gold. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the most lucrative opportunities lie in supporting others on their journey.
And it really highlights the power of leverage, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Now, this all ties back to the question Masterson poses. What role do you ultimately want to play in your business? And there's no right or wrong answer. It's about understanding your strengths, your goals, and aligning your role with what truly fulfills you.
So, to wrap things up, if there were just a few key takeaways from Ready, Fire, Aim that we want our listeners to walk away with, what would they be?
I'd say, first and foremost, remember that action, even imperfect action, beats inaction every time. Don't let fear hold you back. Get your idea out there, test it, and adjust as you go.
It's about embracing that Ready, Fire, Aim mentality, that willingness to learn and adapt as you go.
Exactly. And remember that even if you don't see yourself as a natural salesperson, it's a skill you can develop, and it's crucial for any entrepreneur.
Master the art of persuasion. Know your audience. Communicate the value you offer.
And as your business grows, prioritize building a strong team. Seek out those superstars who share your passion and drive and empower them to do their best work.
Delegate effectively. Learn to trust the amazing team you've built.
And finally, be willing to evolve your role. As your business matures, consider transitioning from entrepreneur to investor. This shift in perspective can unlock new levels of growth and freedom.
It's about thinking long-term, building a legacy, and ultimately designing a business that supports the life you want to live.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So there you have it, a deep dive into Ready, Fire, Aim. It's a call to action, a roadmap for rapid growth, and a reminder that success is not just about the destination, but about the journey itself.